This is CleanTV Family Friendly News. I'm Jerry McLaughlin reporting what's happening on Tuesday, June 29, 2010. A United States Supreme Court ruling just extended gun rights to all 50 states, striking down a Chicago ban on handguns. Gun Owners of America Communications Director Eric Pratt responded saying, quote, "Gun Owners of America rejoices in the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Otis McDonald and against the city of Chicago. In doing so, the court ruled that the 14th Amendment applies to the right to keep and bear arms enshrined in the Second Amendment to all 50 states," unquote. Gun Owners of America is the second largest gun rights group in the United States, and they have submitted an amicus brief in this historic Supreme Court case. And speaking of the Supreme Court, the U.S. Senate confirmation hearings have begun for Barack Obama's U.S. Supreme Court nominee Elena Kagan. The Solicitor General appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee for what was likely to be the first out of several days of testimony. Today is the last day of June, I'm rushing myself. Tomorrow is the last day of June, which Barack Hussein Obama officially proclaimed as, quote, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender pride month, unquote. During this month, major cities across the nation held so-called gay pride parades. Unbelievably, the Grand Marshal in one of these parades was a 10-year-old boy from Arkansas who led the event that often features nudity, simulated sexual and actual sexual acts performed in public in clear violation of ordinances having to do with obscenity and decency laws. American Family Association called this involvement a form of child abuse. One of the largest parades in the country took place on Sunday, June 27th in the city of Chicago. The elected officials, government agencies, and 2 elementary schools who marched in the Chicago Gay Pride Parade did so with taxpayer money. And Illinois Family Institute Executive Director David Smith commented saying, quote, "Apparently God-fearing residents of Illinois are helping to sponsor a parade filled with the most vile of obscenities, while members of the Chicago Police Department stand by and do nothing regarding the enforcement of these laws," unquote. Some of the elected officials represented in Sunday's parade included Illinois Governor Pat Quinn, Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan, and State Treasurer Alexei Giannopoulos, a candidate for U.S. Senate and a person, by the way, whose testimony in the Blagojevich trial might actually implicate Barack Obama in impeachable offenses. CleanTV would like to remind our viewers that when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, the primary reason cited in the Bible was not homosexuality, oddly enough. It was the sin of pride. So, the utter destruction of that ancient twin city over pride should not be overlooked, because when cities that already are in the nuclear crosshairs of terrorists proudly flaunting the phrase, quote, gay pride, they're doing a double thumb in the eye of Almighty, more or less daring him, give it your best shot. Whew, what a world we live in. Referring to Israel as a, quote, genocidal, unquote, nation and a quote, assassin for the United States, unquote, Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez has predicted the day would come when the Jewish state would be, quote, put in its place, unquote, whatever Chavez means by that statement. While entertaining Syrian President Assad, he made these comments during a recent visit. Citing the 2009 Israeli Defense Force offensive in the Gaza Strip, Chavez referred to the military operation as a Holocaust, and he later branded Israel a threat to all of us. He did not offer any specific thoughts on how Israel might be, quote-unquote, put in its place, or by whom, but he did say Israel's day was coming, and that Israel was quickly losing allies. We'll see. Uh-oh, here comes that T word again. This time Obama was telling world leaders that the just completed G20 meetings that he would ask Congress to slap a $90 billion 10-year tax on the America's biggest banks, claiming that the measure would help taxpayers recover funds lost during the financial bailout. Obama's latest proposal comes on the heels of his pending financial reform bill, now making its way through Congress and expected to be signed into law by July 4th. The new tax of 0.15% would be levied on financial companies holding over $50 billion and on hedge funds with over $10 billion in assets. The bank tax would expire in 2020. Yeah, talk about taxes expiring. Who could believe politicians? The toll taxes for highways were supposed to be abolished after they were used up and paid for the equipment for the toll roads, but most toll roads are still taking their tolls. Another story in from Dan Zanoza from our Chicago CleanTV Bureau reported that the corruption trial of former Illinois Democrat Governor Rod Blagojevich, which began on June 3rd and is now expected to last 3 to 4 months. Last week, the prosecution primarily focused on some of the 500 hours of federal wiretaps, which prosecutors used to implicate Blagojevich in a plot to sell or trade the U.S. Senate seat vacated by Barack Obama. Some high-ranking officials in the Obama administration have already been subpoenaed or are being considered as defense witnesses who would provide testimony which the impeached Illinois governor believes will demonstrate the current administration had, quote, direct knowledge, unquote. Blagojevich unsuccessfully attempted to have all 500 hours of the FBI wiretaps introduced as evidence into his trial. Reports indicate Blagojevich's lawyers have subpoenaed Rahm Emanuel, White House Chief of Staff, and Valerie Jarrett, one of Obama's closest political advisors, before and after Obama won the presidential election in 2008. However, Emanuel's subpoena was not made public. Blagojevich alleges a deal was in the works that would have appointed Jarrett to fill Obama's vacated Senate seat in return for Blagojevich receiving a cabinet post in Obama's administration. More fuel was added to the heat facing the Obama White House when it was learned that current Illinois state treasurer was a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Illinois, is also on the list of those that Blagojevich's defense team is going to call to testify. Insiders believe that the treasurer's testimony may provide great insight into the workings of Mayor Rich Daley's Democratic machine from which Obama has cut his political teeth. U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat of Illinois, has also been subpoenaed in the case. To make matters worse for Obama's White House, convicted influence peddler Tony Rezko, a major player in fundraising for both the president and impeached Illinois governor, may also be called to testify, and whose testimony may provide a direct link between Blagojevich's political dealings and Obama, who was a close Rezko confidant. One Democrat insider who requested anonymity said, quote, there's a possibility some of the subpoenas may not be willing to fall on their political swords for a president whose polling numbers are dramatically falling, unquote. Many in the Obama administration fear the damage related to Blagojevich's defense as additional FBI wiretape recordings of sensitive conversations are played. Indeed, no matter whether or not Blagojevich is found innocent or guilty, political insiders say the real damage to Obama may result from Blago's defense, which asserts that he did nothing more than participate in the pay-to-play Chicago-style politics of which Barack Obama led that political parade. Police don't always have it this easy, but in Dyersburg, Tennessee, they arrested a 22-year-old man by the name of Terry McCrate for allegedly breaking into a home but falling asleep on the couch before making his getaway. Investigators for Dwyer County Sheriff say that they believe McCrate was a former resident of that home, so actually the only thing he may have been attempting to steal was a good night's sleep.